can't say it now. Good afternoon, officially. It's 12 o'clock.
Yeah. I don't think it's on.
Oh,
There we go.
There we go.
Hello, hello. Thank you all for coming to this talk today. My name is Deepak. I will be your moderator today. My background is UGC, so I'm giving my appropriate to Dilmer and Jake to give you sort of background on AI.
And I'm Jake STEINERMAN. I was on the stage here yesterday if you guys came to the talk. We're all developer advocates at Meta. I'm another one as well. I work on both Horizon OS and VR and Horizon Worlds as well. So looking forward to our chat today.
And how is everybody doing? Thank you and welcome to the panel. My name is Dilmer and I'm also a developer advocate. I get to work with these guys. And I focus on mixed reality, anything with VR, mixed reality, development side of things. That's basically what I do. And yeah, ready to kick it off.
Yeah, let's get started.
Let's do it. Your mic's going in and out. Do you want to borrow mine? Mine seems to be working.
All right, this is for you, Dilmer. What's the biggest shift you've personally seen in how developers build XR experiences thanks to AI?
Yeah, I think that's, I started developing with when ChatGPT just first came out. And I was telling the story to some guys yesterday about how when ChatGPT came out, I was thinking, oh, this is just another chatbot that just came out. What is ChatGPT? And then I started looking into how to integrate it into Unity and how it can actually give you more context. So my first interaction with AI was I built an integration into Unity that allows you to basically run code with the rustling runtime compiler. Basically, I would ask ChatGPT, it was a code assistant, I would ask ChatGPT to implement some features in C#, and then it'll run in with the actual runtime compiler. One of the areas that I use it, and I've been using it a lot, is being with Cursor. So integrating that with Cursor and helping me with auto-completion. So I think AI right now, it's helping developers a lot. And the ones that I've been talking to, like the guys from Piano Vision, the guy from Piano Vision told me a great story. He's like, Dilmer, I used to have to hire many developers to implement a feature. And now with AI, it's just me just prompting and telling it, okay, I want to build this specific feature. And with that, I can take it to the next level. And he doesn't really use everything that gets exported out of it, but he's using small pieces and then getting that code deployed to production, but not actually letting the agent do all the work. It's more like, okay, this is what I want to implement, and I look at the code, I understand it, and then I integrate it.
And yet to add to that as well, in terms of kind of the shift seeing, I was having a conversation last night with Ori from AWE about how do we, the next generation of creators, and how do we bring them into the space as well? Because one of the things we were talking about is a lot of kind of Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're the ones spending so much time in XR and spending so much money in XR as well, but what that's causing is their interest and actual action in building their own VR games and XR games. So AI really allows them to build a lot more quickly and build on their own. So you can be, a 12, 15-year-old kid in your room at home and be able to build a full XR game because of AI and what it allows you to do. And they're having conversations with AI and helping them troubleshoot and build. They don't have to read tons of documentation. They don't have to necessarily watch videos. Sorry, Dilmer. But they can really learn a lot more quickly and build things. So you're seeing a lot more content being built out there. So how can we as a community here really welcome in those kinds of developers, that next generation of creators that are learning from each other and building a lot more quickly and getting, I think, a lot earlier head start than maybe some of us did because of those capabilities.
So maybe related, like with that next generation, and from your vantage point from being a developer advocate, what are some of the highlights from experiences developers are building with GenAI today, like you've seen, like maybe in hackathons or competitions?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of hackathons this year ourselves, of course, as advocates. We just did one a couple weeks ago in Barcelona, the Sense AI hack. Shout out Pia, I know you're in the audience here. There she is in the back. So being the ability now, it's crazy. You can see with tools like, of course, Horizon Worlds, but really any tools being able to build a full game or full experience in 48 hours. So these hackathons, of course, only last 2 days, but we saw experiences and games that were ready to go, ready for players and ready to be published really quickly, because you can prompt now actually whole worlds. We just announced World Gen, so you go from prompt to full 3D worlds in minutes, which saves a ton of time in getting at least, at the minimum, a prototype of a game or experience ready, let alone a full game loop and full experience, because you can generate code, you can generate audio files, skyboxes, basically everything you need. And that's what a lot of the stuff that we're working on at Meta is the ability to go from prompt to full game in a matter of minutes. So if you have an idea or a thought of oh, this would be a really fun game to play, you can go and implement it and try it out and test it and get players really, really quickly. So that's a lot of what we're seeing in these hackathons and these experiences is the quality bar going up really high, really, really quickly in just a matter of hours. And then that's just the starting point, obviously, in a hackathon. And then they can take it and spend weeks on it and then have something super polished in a matter of weeks instead of months or even years.
Yeah, let me add a little bit to that. So the thing that we're also looking at is because there's two ways to look at AI, right? Like we look at people doing vibe coding, and these are the people that they haven't really done a lot of coding, but they're like trying to get into coding, and they're getting familiar with it, which is great. Like we're giving them, empowering them to do something that they couldn't do before. So we're seeing that in XR, where people that didn't have the experience before are now able to implement these features and get better understanding about all the different ins and outs, like what is a camera rig, what is the pass-through component, how do you implement, like how do you add controllers to an MR experience. But there's other ones like the more advanced developers that I've been meeting here, we've been meeting over hackathons that have published games. And these are the people that are like, okay, they're more, they started before the AI boom, so they wanted to learn everything from scratch, right? That's me, like I wanted to know how to implement a class, what an interface was, what an extension method was in C#, like, so for them, it's more like, okay, I'm going to use this to be able to predict what it might tell me to do. For the example of Piano Vision, the guy did the same thing. He's like, okay, he prompted, I want to be able to map basically the keys on the piano and calibrate it, but have that calibration being done through OpenCV and more advanced. That part was really complicated. He didn't understand it, but what he did is he got that information. He kind of, okay, this is what AI is giving me. And now that I understand it, now I'm going to integrate it into my workflow. So I think it helps both. That's what we're seeing. It's helping people with DAO XR knowledge and people with XR knowledge.
That's awesome. Dilmer, camera access was incredibly requested feature, as we've heard a lot. How can developers get started with PCA today while leveraging GenAI tools? And have you seen any cool projects?
Yeah, just like Jake said, I mean, we have seen so many different projects with pass-through camera access. How can you get started? We offer, it used to be that we had a sample project. It was called Pass-Through Camera Samples on GitHub. And it was this external project that you had to integrate, and it was using the webcam texture. And it was all these process, it was very manual process, so now it's integrated into MR UK. So if you guys download either Meta all-in-one SDK or the actual MR UK implementation that is available on the Unity Asset Store, it's gonna be available there. And what we're seeing is just many developers are creating really cool. We saw a really cool experience on XRCC in Berlin where they basically created this music application that would use camera access to detect, let's say that I look at I'm creating music and composing music and looking at that cup. It basically detects what the object is, and it's creating music, audio generation in runtime, and then adding that to the actual composition of the music. So that's just one of them. We have seen many different examples.
Yeah, another great one, also from XRCC earlier this year. One of my favorite ones I've seen this year was a football trainer effectively experience where using pass-through camera and AI, they were able to track it was a mixed reality experience where they were able to physically track a football and you would have to kick the football around to both destroy and dodge enemies that were in your physical world with you. So it was really impressive to be able to track a physical object in real time and then use that as a part of your experience. I think seeing a lot more of those types of experiences that truly not just put objects in your world, like on your couch or on your table. I think we've seen a lot of those today, but ones that really blend in a dynamic world that are moving and adapting to what you're doing.
Yeah, that piano XR experience blew my mind. Jake,
Yes.
XR devices, like we heard yesterday, are becoming increasingly AI native. How do you see AI influencing the next generation of devices?
Yeah, huge. I mean, to reference Ori again, he talked a lot about it in his keynote yesterday, where AI needs XR, and I think that's extremely true, obviously from the examples that we gave. But the reason is, XR is really the ultimate form factor. It's obviously why we're invested so much in it, both obviously on the Quest side, but on the wearables and the glasses side, because it allows the AI to see what you're seeing and understand your world around you and give you, interact with you in real time based on what you're seeing, what you're doing, whether it was the soccer ball example or whether you're cooking something in your kitchen or whatever it might be. Having that ultimate form factor, I think, is great, because without that context, of your real world, you lose a lot. You have to do a lot more, I think, explaining, right, when you're prompting ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, Meta AI, whatever it is that you're using. The prompting part is a real challenge. So if it can, by default, understand what you're seeing, if it's something, obviously, if you're out in the real world and you want more information about something or whatever it might be, having that vision aspect, whether it's always running or whether you prompt it to, say, hey, Meta AI, what am I looking at? Start live AI. That's really powerful, and seeing more of that embedded deeper into devices. You're seeing it obviously not just with our stuff, but Google and Google and the Android XR, their headset that just came out with Gemini built in by default. You're seeing this more and more on these devices, and it's going to become. It's right now, of course, you have to prompt these things, and it's more of, I think, a high level feature, but it's going to be embedded so deeply into these experiences that it blends a lot more into the background. I think, honestly, to be honest, Apple does this really well with a lot of stuff. They don't talk a lot about AI as like a feature, but I think I'm an iOS user, and you see a lot of, other than Siri, you see a lot of AI things baked in to the OS that happen, I think, really naturally. They're just not calling it AI, whether it's things like their notification summaries. I mean, those aren't so great, but there's a lot of other things I'm not thinking of right now that I've used and that I've seen that they do really well. They're just not calling it an AI feature, and I think we'll start to see more of that as well. Things that just kind of blend a lot more naturally into the OS, and other things as well. Mark has talked a lot about generative UI in glasses, which I think is a really interesting concept. One I'm still trying to wrap my head around a bit myself, but I think it has to do with that context awareness on glasses. So you kind of start to see it a little bit with the Meta Ray-Ban display glasses, and actually having a visible UI on your glasses. But what if that UI adapted to what you're seeing or adapted to you personally, or changed depending on the context, depending if you're at the airport or if you're here at United XR or whatever it is, maybe you're going on a tour of the city. It kind of adapts to what you're doing and learns and understands your needs and your interests.
That's great. I agree.
Thank you.
Dilmer, unfortunately, a lot of people do struggle integrating sort of like AI into their stack. Like, what are some tips or like ideas you have for lowest effort, like highest impact, how they sort of can integrate AI into their projects, especially XR projects?
Yeah, no, I think I mean, I mentioned a little bit. I could give you the complicated answer, or I could give you the simple answer just to get started. I think a lot of people here in this room are using tools like Cursor, you're using VS Code, and you're using Code Assistance. But for me, it has been just using Code Assistance. I think it's been a huge help. The last video that I did, we watched mainly how to use Cursor with Unity, which wasn't fully integrated when I was testing it. Was really helpful because I was able to quickly prototype. So in the past, I would create a project from scratch, and I would have to implement everything I did, like a tabletop game that you basically pull a ball back out, and it was like a bowling game that was sitting on the top of the table. And normally things like that would take me 2 to 3 weeks. So now what I'm doing is using Cursor to basically implement some of the features that were taking me quite a bit of time. So even if it's just something as simple as adding a coding assistant, or something as we actually added something to MetaQuest Developer Hub, which is under the AI tools. And what that allows you to do is it has an MCP server behind the scenes that knows how to talk to the documentation. We got a lot of questions in the past about the documentation and how complex it is, so thank you for your feedback. The meta documentation sometimes is out of sync, so the MCP server allows you to basically get better documentation, look exactly at what you need. So I think using tools like that into your workflow, whether it's an MCP server, there's one available on GitHub that works well with Unity, is built by a friend of mine, which is Justin Barnett. We also implemented a different one with the MetaQuest Developer Hub. So yeah, I recommend coding assistants, MetaQuest Developer Hub, and then just seeing what the industry is currently doing.
And to add to that too, and this goes for really anything, but kind of the antithesis to that too is don't add AI to your project if you don't need it, or don't don't feel, because there's obviously a lot of AI hype right now, and of course we're working on a ton of AI at Meta, of course, but add it where it makes sense and where it adds, whether it's your development flow or whether it's a feature in the app itself, only if it adds to the user experience, or only if it really helps you solve a problem or something like that. Don't go into it saying, I need to build an AI thing. Think of and again, this goes for anything that you're building, of course. Think of a problem you're trying to solve, or a type of gameplay loop that you want to add to your experience, or whatever it might be. And then if you reach a point where like, oh, AI could really help me, build this much more quickly, or this would really make this a lot more fun if I had an AI NPC here that I can chat with or make the world feel more alive. I think those are the times you want to add it. Don't go into it being like, all right, AI is hype. I need to get investment, so I'm gonna start with AI and work my way backwards from there. Well, that's not necessarily the way to go about it.
I think a good example of that is I am really familiar with C#, I'm really familiar with Unity, but I'm not really a good shader programmer. So when it comes to AI, like using it for shaders, or another thing that I did a background job, because with the AI tools today, you can do either an agent mode, you can do an as mode, or you can run it in the background. I think I ran it against a couple of my projects that I built over the years. And then it did take about 10 minutes to run through everything, but it was really crazy that it created a repo, and I'm sure many of you probably have tried that. It basically created a PR from a repo that I already had and gave me all the recommendations of some things that I might do, some things that might not be, something that I would implement myself, but that you might get another developer to do. But yeah, just trying to find when it makes sense and implement AI, not just because of it. But I think for me personally, staying up to date and learning some of those tools is really, really important, and seeing what people are using in hackathons, I think it's really important to understand, oh, maybe it makes sense to do that. Then, in that case, then I would say you could integrate it into your workflow.
That being said, we have seen a lot of AI use, especially in hackathons, right? And we find they're early indicators of trends. Like we've seen at Sense AI, XRCC. So what are some cases or projects you've seen, Jake, that are really you think will become mainstream?
Yeah, I mean, I think to kind of get away from some of the gaming use cases, I think, and to kind of reference a little bit of the gentleman that came before us, seeing some real useful applications of AI and XR, I think, are really important. So we've seen, I think, a number of cases around enterprise maintenance and training, I think, that were really interesting. I spent a lot of my career actually working in enterprise at PTC and Vuforia and other manufacturing companies and things like that. So to see those use cases keep coming up at these hackathons, like in Barcelona at the Sense AI hack that we were a part of, there was a project that allowed, I forget the technologies they were using in the background, you can, the RoboFlow, thank you, to effectively recognize a vehicle's engine and overlay instructions and training on top of that engine and identify parts just by, again, using RoboFlow and pass-through on the MetaQuest, so they can put on their Quest, look at that engine, bring up that application, and it can walk them through step by step. And when I was at PTC and Vuforia, we were seeing a lot of that, and this is 7 years ago at that point, using IoT technologies to feed a lot of data into these trainings and applications, and now use that as the basis for LLMs and AI models to not just understand the trainings and deliver that to maybe new employees or ones that are getting retrained, but combine that with the CAD data and recognize, again, what you're looking at, even at a really small parts level, individual screws, nuts, bolts, and things like that. Since you can combine that with detailed CAD data, you can really pull out small individual parts and show someone almost a 3D color numbers step by step what to do. So you're able to train people a lot more quickly and efficiently without the needs for really long documentation or maybe confusing videos that you have to prop up your laptop to view or things like that. Through these glasses and through these headsets, training, I think, is something that I've kept seeing over the 13 or so years that I've been in this industry, and it keeps coming up because I think it's really important.
Last question, Dilmer. It's a little bit of a technical one. Many developers wonder how to balance on-device versus cloud AI. How should teams think about which AI tasks belong locally on XR devices and which should remain cloud-based?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's it comes to mind that example that Jake just mentioned about having something that gives you instructions on how to fix a car. That example basically overlays different components of the car that you might need to fix. And that team used RoboFlow, and it was pretty much all in the cloud. And many people that were around in the hackathon were using cloud solutions. So I think about, okay, latency, like if you want to implement feature and you don't want to break immersion, and you don't want to have the user have to wait for something to get generated before they can interact with different objects. So I think latency, it's one of the factors, like try to find out if the model is available in Hugging Face. This is something that is available that you can integrate into Unity Scientist that can run locally. On the cloud, on the security part, privacy is really important, right? Like if it's information that you don't want it to go out to the cloud, then that makes sense to run it locally. So that it's kind of a decision that your team has to make. Do you want to have a cloud, if it's going to be in the cloud, if it's going to be secure? The other part to that is going to be, well, does your team want to be maintaining that solution? If it's local, sometimes that tends to be a lot more complicated. If you're integrating Unity Scientist, the models tend to be a lot harder to implement versus using something like RoboFlow, which runs in the cloud. Normally, they have an API that is available for you, and they're really easy. Then think about also like the cost of the API calls that you have to. We had a lot of questions for people that are submitting to the hackathon. So we have a VR hackathon. Check it out. It's on DevPost. And a lot of developers are using API keys. And my thought there is like, okay, that's great. You're using RoboFlow, and that addresses the solution, the use case that you're trying to satisfy. But after the competition, you're going to have to maintain the API cost, right? Like, there's going to be a big volume. If it goes viral, hopefully you get a lot of sales. But also think about if there's other ways that you can also implement it locally. Right now, Sensei AI Hack, it's another hackathon vendor that we work with. They have a lot of different models, a lot of different tiers. They have examples for local type AI implementations and demos that you can integrate into your project versus when to do it on the cloud. So we partner with them. They've done a lot of hackathons. If you have a custom specific question about that specific scenario where you're trying to decide, do I do it locally, do I do it on the cloud, let us know, and then, yeah, we can help out.
Yeah, one other example, we got like 30 seconds left here. Kind of a little bit of a different twist on the question of cloud versus local rendering when it comes to AI is Hyperscape, our technology for scanning spaces and stepping into those really hyper-realistic worlds, which is using Gaussian splatting and AI to generate those meshes that you use your Quest headset and can scan your 3D space. So when we first launched Hyperscape, it was on cloud rendering because they weren't social yet. So those we had a really high level of fidelity because we were using cloud rendering. When we added social features and the ability to invite your friends and people on Horizon into those worlds with you, we moved that onto on-device rendering because we're also handling multiple avatars and users into those spaces as well. The fidelity did drop a little bit, but the trade-off was you can go in there with your friends. So kind of to the point also is like it depends your application and what device you're using as well. Are there other users in the space? Are you on a mobile device? Are you using PC VR? Those kinds of things determine, and what level of fidelity you need. Maybe in an enterprise application, you probably need something a lot higher fidelity, maybe than something that's purely a social or gaming experience. So the device, context, and use case are really important to deciding how you want to go about that.
And with that, that concludes how we think vision to reality, how AI is transforming the XR development world. And please give Jake and Dilmer a round of applause.
And Deepak, thank you.
Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you, good night.